Hi, welcome to another edition of Legal Quilts. Today, we're still going to be working on Scrap Summer, but I'm also going to be adding in something new and interesting. Today, I'm going to show you how I make this great scented mat. It's not spiced, I'm using herbs, not spices. Today, I'm going to be using lemon balm from my own garden. I grew it, dried it myself, and preserved it, put it in the jar so it's all good to go. These are going to be offered on my website with a variety. You can have just lemon balm, what I'm going to call a lemon medley, because I have lemongrass, lemon, and lemon verbena to go along with the lemon balm. So those are all going to be mixed in. Trust me, I have plenty of lemongrass, even left over from last year. And then lavender and lemon balm will be an option. I don't have enough lavender this year to do just lavender. And then I have what I've called a mint medley, because I went a little nuts on buying mint plants. So far I have spearmint, peppermint, orange mint, chocolate mint, and ginger mint. Don't ask about the ginger mint. And those are just all going to be mixed in together. And what's really great is when you do this mat, you put hot things on it. You can put hot things on it because I'm using cotton instead of polyester. You don't want to use polyester, it'll melt. And you put hot things on here, and that heat will warm up the herbs that are in it and create a scent. I've got lots of lemon balm. This is just from the first cutting this year, and I have another jar. The key is, believe it or not, when you put it inside, you really don't want, as you're working on it, all the herbs to be flaking out the side. So the secret is you use 2 pieces of batting. Now this is thin cotton, so that's okay. But you want to use, you separate your 2 pieces of batting, and then you take your lemon balm or whatever herb or spice you're using, and be liberal on this, especially because, like I said, I have lots of lemon balm left over. Okay? You don't want it lumpy, so you don't want, bulges or anything. So kind of spread it out equally here, but be liberal because you want the scent to remain, and smells nice. Oops, got that part. Then you take your second piece of batting and you just lay it on the top, and again, you don't want a lot of bulges. And then you come over here to your sewing machine and you just sew all the way around. So you're kind of sealing it in there. And you're basically, what you're going to do is you do this. Turn it up a little faster. As you're making this mat, you're going to basically seal it in 3 times so that you don't have herbs or whatever scenting you're using. This one has lemon balm, has rose petals in it that I had purchased a while ago. But from now on, I'm just going to be using what I have in my garden because I have it and it's overflowing to the point where, even though it's only July, I've already had to do 1 cutting, and it looks like I'm going to have to go in there and cut back a little bit again. Try not to cut back too much on it because I want it to go to seed, so I'll have even more next year. But I do have to keep it looking nice and not flopping over into the sidewalk. And you just do this around. A bit more there. You want a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm a little wide there, but I'll show you what I'm going to do anyway. You can do this part after you put your top together, so you know how big you need. That's fine, but I already have done one, so I know how big a piece I need. And this gets this step out of the way, and you just kind of go around and around. Go all the way around. You don't leave any openings. Right? first way you've sealed it in. Just a little bit. Now when you're done with this, I cut this out. Trim all your threads here. Got everything trimmed here. This one. What you're going to do, again, is you're going to trim this because you kind of want to reduce your bulk, especially on your corners and stuff, and that one got a little big. So you want to reduce your bulk. Just trim it a little bit, especially the corners. You know, just snip a little bit off there. This is pretty good. You don't want to get it too small, and you don't want to cut your stitches. You just trim it a little bit, all right? So that's going to be your batting part. Now your top piece, this pretty piece, again, you're using scraps, because we want to use up all our scraps this summer, or at least make a dent in them somehow. This is going to be, went to the scrap bucket and got some pieces here. And again, I said before, I don't like doing log cabins or light courthouse steps with just scraps because you got to do the light dark thing, but I managed to find enough to make it work. Okay, so I'm doing your courthouse steps because legal quilts. Okay, but this is a great pattern for that one block you always wanted to do but didn't want to make a whole quilt of it, like Seven Sisters or something. You know, something that has a lot of pieces to it but you thought would be really cool. Well, great, just make a hot mat out of it, and put your little herbs in there, and you're all set. Now we're going to do a courthouse steps, which starts with a centerpiece. I used a 2.5-inch square, and I'm using 2 inches instead of 2.5-inch strips like I usually do. That actually, and that's just because I didn't want this to get too big. Your mat can be any size you want it to be. And then you have to decide which one you want to be dominant, because as you can see, the longer strips on the sides tend to be the dominant color, so you have to decide. My favorite color is blue, for those of you who haven't guessed, and so blue is going to be dominant on this one. So I'm going to start with the smaller one, which is going to be yellow. I got this pretty yellow dragonfly fabric, and of course the sea glass center, because I really like this. I'm going through a sea glass phase. You can check out the sea glass coasters I have up on the website, and also I have over on all my social media, I posted a sea glass butterfly I did, because I'm still working on my butterflies. Now my butterfly wasn't scrap because I cut it from yardage, and same with the coasters, but I'm still working on my butterflies. So you just, along one side of your square, you sew your strip, and then you cut it. I like to do this with long strips because it makes it, because you actually use less fabric. If you do a strip for each one, you wind up wasting fabric, even if you cut them smaller to begin with. And then, because this is courthouse steps, not long cabin, you see where this is sewn in? You sew at the bottom on the other side, not next to. You sew at the other side from the piece you just sewed. You sew the matching color, your light. I'm going to make this one light as the smaller pieces, and we're going to make dark the dominant color. Sew that. Open it out. And cut it again. And the good thing about this is, usually on a courthouse steps you go around 3 times, but for the mat I'm going to do 2. It makes it just the right size. It's about 8 inches, which I think is a good size for a hot mat. You just need something big enough to put a pan on to protect your table. All right, now then, you've got the piece looking like this. You've got the yellow on both sides. You lay the blue on, and even though it's going to be the long side, it's still the smaller piece because it's narrower. You lay that along one side so it goes from top to bottom on the yellow, as you can see, okay? lay that in there and just sew it down. Stray thing floating around there. Get rid of that for just a second. Oops, didn't cut all my threads. Okay, and then you trim your blue again at the bottom, and I'm using my lovely second pair of Kai scissors. This is the little smaller shears. This is the 8-inch shears instead of the 10-inch. I use that for trimming. My longer shears are used for cutting off selvage, you know, larger cuts. So pull that up a little bit because it's not exactly straight. And then you do the same thing. You cut it, as you can see, on the opposite side. Cut it. You lay it out again from yellow to yellow, from the top of the yellow to the bottom of the yellow, and you sew that. And that's why you're going in a step motion where the steps are going up instead of log cabin where they're interlocking. It's the same basic piece, and the courthouse steps is a variation of the log cabin. And again, if you do a lot of blocks of courthouse steps, which we're not going to do here, but I have some examples of that. I'm not going to show them today, but when you start putting the pieces together, if you do lots of log cabin blocks, what you get is a secondary pattern where the blue comes together or the yellow would come together in the blocks depending on how you arrange them. So then for the second round, and again we're only going to do 2 rounds here, I call them rounds because you go around the center block. You do the same thing with your yellow on the yellow side. Again, see the yellow here, so you're going to do that, and you're going to go from the top of the blue all the way down to the bottom of the blue. And you're going to sew that down. And same thing, you're just going to trim that. And then you're going to do the other yellow side the same way. Trim that, and you're all done with the yellow, so you can put all the yellow pieces away. Cut that. Okay, put your yellow pieces away, and then you're just going to do the blue again, just like before, where you lay it out from the top of the yellow to the bottom of the yellow again, and you sew it down. Same thing. So these are just very simple to go together. Great way to use up your scraps, especially if you want to use it on a pattern that you always wanted to try but didn't want to do a whole quilt. So you lay it down, and I didn't quite cut that one straight, but that's okay. I'll show you what to do if you have that problem. You just sew it on. And you'll sew this one down first. And pull that out and cut it. And you see that little piece that's sticking up there? That's okay. You just trim that down so you don't have as much bulk underneath. Okay, and then you cut it, and your top is all together. Like I said, normally for a courthouse steps block, you would go around one more time. For this, since we're just making the mat, this is what it looks like. And then you take your batting, which I've got this nice plain white batting here. You layer your, backing, got this plain white backing. You layer your scented batting on top of that, and then you layer your top right on top of that, which mine got a little smaller than the one before, but not too much, so it should be okay. Said you might want to do a little more trimming. And then the second way you seal everything in is when you do the quilting. As you can see, I did swirls on this one just to keep it, hold the herbs in place a little bit more. And then the third way you do it when you're done quilting is with the binding. You go around and you bind your quilt, you bind this block, and everything will keep then the herbs from sneaking out and making a mess. So that's it. That's how simple this is. And again, use your scraps. I used some leftover binding here. I even used, had some thread left on a bobbin that I wanted to use up. So that's what I used for the quilting. I'm not going to quilt this one right now because I don't have my walking foot on or my free motion, and I don't have it setting out where I can grab it really easy. So, but that's what you do. Quilt it as you desired. You can hand quilt it whatever you want. That's the second way you hold everything in. You can do a little trim if it turns out your block doesn't quite fit. That's okay. And then you bind it, and that'll hold all your herbs in it. So that's how you make a nice scented herb. So that's today's episode. Here's my, I know it's scan me backwards. Here's the QR code again, which has the website, the Instagram, buy me a coffee so I can keep making these videos, all of these things. Don't forget to tag me, Legal Quilts, and use the hashtag ScrapSummer. Show me all your creations. And these mats will be up on the website this afternoon. Happy quilting, and see you next episode.